Welcome back to Heaven and Health. I am your host, JoJo Tavares, and I am here again with Terri Hutchinson, the amazing Terri from Anchored Not Anxious. And she is here this week to talk about emotional health and
Yes,
what should you shouldn't believe about anxiety.
right. Okay. Uh, on my podcast, I talk about the myths of anxiety. And so from time to time, I will research the myths, and inevitably, there's always new myths. And I don't think I've ever talked about that on this show. So I thought I might bring up three of the more prominent myths, and we can just find out the truth. All right. So, the first myth, you can suppress or use willpower to overcome anxiety.
I love this one because this is very similar to what I deal with my clients with food noise and things like that. All you need is willpower.
Okay.
Tell
All
us why
right.
that's not true.
No, no, no. So, here's the thing. Everybody has an anxiety response. We know that it's our biological warning system to help us go into fight or flight mode because of an external threat. Now, that's the key word there. Key words, external threat. All right. But if you are feeling anxious and worried by fearful thoughts, constant replaying of a past conversation, you're what ifing a negative outcome, or you're on a chronic search for information to make that perfect decision, then you're responding to an internal threat, an internal process. And that's not what your nervous system was meant to manage. And that's why you go into overdrive and it hurts you. So the truth is, you suppression or using willpower to address anxiety does not lessen it or resolve it. It might push it into the background for for a bit,
For a
but it's
while.
always going to come back forward. Um, and then Jojo, the other thing is you people let shame or self-reliance dictate and prevent them from getting control of their anxiety to get the help that they need. And yeah, so most of us do not have a diagnosis of generalized anxiety disorder, but that doesn't mean you you don't need to access help for it. There's this thing called a stress cycle. And think of the old hamster wheel. You get on this stress cycle and you're going round and round, and you cannot find the escape. You can't find the way off. So, if you're in that, then that's when counseling with cognitive behavioral therapy, we've talked about that here. Um, it helps you identify the triggers. You putting that out there into space helps that other person and you process what's going on, and you're able to exit that stress cycle. And then, of course, the other thing are the medications. Now, think about medications and your nervous system this way. Your nervous system has a thermostat and it gets broken. So the medications help to reset that thermostat, all right? So instead of being, you know, all the way on high heat, you know, those medications can kind of get you back into a comfort zone. So they create the release of serotonin, they block acetylcholine, and then what that is it provides regulation. So, and I personally take one of these meds because my body has a broken regulation thermostat. So I need it. I do other things too, but I'm not going to deprive my body of something that it needs to release serotonin. So, Jojo, here's our second myth. Anxiety affects only the mind, not the body.
Well, we know on my show that everything affects everything, right? We already
That's right.
know that's not true because
That
yeah, your emotions can affect your physical body, can affect a lot of other things. And I've talked about this endlessly. That's the reason why heaven and health exists, because health is way more than just physical.
yes. So let's list some of the kind of symptoms that
Mm-hmm.
you or we would think that one would experience with ongoing anxiety. What might
Yeah.
be a symptom?
Well,
Well, there's
anxiety causes eating issues. A lot of people stress eat, right? That
yes,
causes physical issues because if you stress eat, you're eating, you're gaining weight, or you're eating things you shouldn't be eating, and that affects your health, even if it doesn't affect your weight. So things like that. I'm trying to think. Your
muscle
stress levels.
tension, you know,
Yes. Yes.
definitely headaches.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it can cause fatigue because you're using so much mental energy, but
Right.
also physical energy, processing, and your body's on overload, right? You can harm your pancreas, you can harm your heart when you have chronic anxiety.
You have sleep issues
Yes,
because either you sleep a lot because you're depressed, or you don't sleep because you're anxious.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing was you can have you know, dizziness, uh, because your organs are affected, right? So the heart, your blood pressure is through the roof. You have a racing heart. Sometimes anxiety can cause hot flashes because,
Goodness.
yeah, and let's not add to what's
Add to the hot
already,
flashes. Yeah.
yeah, let's not. All right. So the third myth is that Christians shouldn't be anxious.
Yeah.
It's a faith issue.
Yeah. And that's a guilt trip thing, I think. We put that on, sometimes Christians will put that on themselves, sometimes on other people, that if you are stressed, you are not a good Christian. You're not trusting God. And this side of heaven, you have issues with that. God knows that.
Absolutely. So I know that some people might not agree with me, but I believe the Bible makes it very clear that anxiety and despair is not condemned by God. He
Right.
meets you in it with compassion. And I'll tell you why. So, for instance, in Psalm 22, the King David, he's crying out to God. He's saying, "Why have you forsaken me?" And he's saying he is in anguish. This this is a man who fought Goliath and took down the bear and the lion.
And
And then in
wasn't he
first,
the man after God's own heart?
yes, absolutely. And then in First Kings 19, the prophet Elijah, he told God, he said, "You know what? I've had enough, Lord. Take my life. I'm done." These are men sold out for God, and yet anguish, despair, overwhelm tried to undo them. And let's not forget about Jesus in the garden,
Yes.
asking for confirmation that separation from God, his Father, to save the world was the Father's will. So your Savior knows your struggle to walk difficult paths with faith. And so I believe that the Bible shows that doubt and questions are part of the trust process. and not a sign of a lack of faith. And know this, that the power the power of anxiety tries to erase your belief that God is for you and with you. And
I
if
think
you
that's
are
a very good point. I want to stop right here
yeah,
because isn't that what the enemy does? He tries to point us away from God. So what he's telling us is that, if you feel this way, obviously you're not a good Christian. You might as well just quit now. Right?
yeah.
He's trying to tell you that you're not good enough, that you're not strong enough, that you don't have enough faith, that maybe you shouldn't have. I mean, all of this goes on in your head. That's one of his tactics.
And it increases your anxiety because if you
Right.
start seeing it as, well, I'm not performing well for God, I'm not doing enough, I need to try harder, that's just putting additional pressure on you.
And
That
guilt.
that is not what you need.
Right.
If you are already anxious about things. And of course you're going to God. Of course you're asking questions and doubting. But God will meet you in it. And if you are seeking him, you will be able to find him and he will speak. And so, if you're anchored to God in a trust relationship, fear cannot chase away your faith. God knows your struggle and his compassion for you is unfailing as it was for David and Elijah. He is with you and for you.
This was so powerful because I think there's so many people out there who are struggling with this, having the guilt, thinking they're not a good Christian, thinking they couldn't, they're wrong. Why are they feeling this way? Feeling like the enemy is just tugging at them, which just as you said, it's a vicious cycle. It makes it worse. This makes it worse.
Yeah, faith, there is no uh perfect faith path, right? It's just not going to be perfect. There was only one who did that, and that was Jesus. So, uh,
And he was
you're
perfect, but he didn't have a blessed life. And I think that's that's one of the things where a lot of some Christians will say, or a lot of non-Christians believe, if we accept Jesus, our life will be perfect and not have any problems. Boy, is that not the case? And that's not what the Bible says, huh?
no, absolutely. I mean, we're promised trouble. We're going to get upset. We're going to get overwhelmed by it. That's how we're built. So, but we're meant to take all that to the Father, to the
Right.
Son, you know, and then the Spirit in us will help minister and help us to understand those next steps and how we can, get to a place of peace. Uh, but it's not going to be a smooth road, We're going to stumble, we're going to fall off the side, we're going to skin our knee. So faith is a process just like everything else. So is it time for our challenge?
It is. Bear with us.
All right. So your challenge is to pray about one of those myths. So the first one was you can suppress or use willpower to overcome anxiety. The second one was anxiety only affects your mind, not your body. And the third one was Christians shouldn't be anxious. All right. And you may be believing a myth that about anxiety. And so I encourage you as part of your challenge to research that. Go on Google and say, myths about anxiety. And it will show you probably six or seven. And what I want you to do is if you don't relate to one of these three myths here, look there and see if you find a myth that you're believing. And then what you need to do is release it to God. You know, take take off that backpack that somehow you're doing something wrong or that you have to live and be a certain way.
The perfection.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfection. So, and then ask God for direction. What is my next step? All right. I'm not going to believe this myth anymore. What is my next step? Maybe it is taking a step to get help.
Yes, absolutely. This was so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. And I hope all of you who are listening are going to be taking one of those myths and analyzing if that is something you're believing that is holding you back, because that's what the enemy will do. He's going to try and hold you back, holding on to that myth that is not yours to hold. So take that to the Lord. Thank you so much, Terri. I
Of
so look
course.
forward to our time together. She always brings, you guys always brings so much wisdom and so much insight for us to think about too. I love our challenges with her. So thank you so much. We will see you next week.